Hello and welcome to another episode of Feminine Alchemy. Today we are having a wonderful conversation with a really good friend of mine. So you all are in for a real treat. Ashley Ogbaselassie, I hope I'm saying it right, is on with us to talk about ADHD, neurodivergence, and parenting. I'm so excited for this because it has been something that has been plaguing me for probably a decade. So she's going to have all the answers for me, and I'm really looking forward to that. But first, let's get to her bio. Ashley is a lifelong learner, lover of connecting with people, and mom of 3 active boys. After struggling with the first years of parenting, getting stuck in comparison, and feeling like she was the only one having a hard time, she finally navigated the long path to an ADHD diagnosis for her oldest and for herself. Then she realized one important truth: ADHD is her superpower. After years of anxiety and feeling inadequate as a parent, she went from trying to change and control her kids to heal and change herself. And she is now a parenting coach for parents of kids with ADHD and who are probably a little neurospicy themselves. So, everybody give Ashley a warm, happy welcome. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, thanks for having me. I don't know that I'll have all the answers, but I'll just tell you what's in my brain today. That's my goal.
I love it. I love it so much. So, I was wondering about your sun, moon, and rising because that's usually our first question. But instead of talking about that, I want to hear about your Enneagram and how you relate to that.
Yeah, so I am a super strong Enneagram 8, a challenger. Funny thing is I'm married to a peacemaker, so it's been a journey, you know what I mean? It's sort of like with parenting too, where like you have strengths and you have maybe things that are a little harder, and if both of you are using your strengths together, then it's a beautiful, marriage of personalities. But so yeah, I'm that type, very justice oriented, very much like if I see something happening, I'm going to jump in and take care of it. If I see something that I don't feel like is, taking care of the weakest and the people who are most vulnerable, I'm going to jump in and say something about it. And then there's the other side too, because a lot of times that Enneagram type doesn't have the emotions, but I also am like a pretty strong empath as well. So that side is a little bit of an anomaly with the challenger, but maybe that's actually what drives my challenger tendencies is that empathic side of things. So
I
that's
love
me in a
this.
nutshell.
I love it. I love it. Um, Tell us about your cultural background, how you grew up, and then how that's informed who you are today and what it is that you do and how that sort of came about.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. I actually grew up in church. I grew up in like a Christian faith. Went to a little more of a very like a pretty conservative church where women couldn't wear pants. It was that kind of a situation growing up. But I did get a lot of the fundamentals of my faith that I still believe in now. A lot of the other legalism type of things has been something that I've been deconstructing since becoming an adult and trying to figure out, sort of what I believe, what was more man-made, what was, my actual faith and those types of things. So I'd say I grew up in that, grew up with 3 sisters and me. So I was the youngest of 4, very different than having the 3 boys I have right now. So it's been a learning challenge to have boys, but I think that I always say this, it's good and bad, right? I'm a little bit dead inside in a good and bad way after having 3 boys. In a good way because I've given up on some things that maybe were just me controlling things, right?
Mhm.
And then because if not, you don't survive. You gotta let go and be a little less uptight, a little more open about things. And then some of it's just really actually being dead inside. So it depends on the situation. But yeah, always was like I was like an overachiever always my entire life. Went to engineering school, got a master's in, to be an engineering manager, was an engineer for 18 years and a project
Mm.
manager, led people, all of those types of things. And then really always felt this little part inside of me that was wanted to work with people. When I did those like personality tests at the beginning of like my career in like a leadership program, it was always like, you need to be working with people, like go to HR or do something like that. So I always sort of had these 2 sides, like that logical, side that likes to look at like patterns and recognitions and that kind of stuff. And then the other side, which was people, super, super extrovert, Like, I get all my energy from being around people. Again, and maybe me and my husband have some things there because he's a super introvert. So he's like, "Can you just stop talking, please?" Um, but it's a good balance between us. So, anyways, that was sort of my upbringing. Always like just being this like overachiever, getting all A's, doing all those kind of things, and then parenting hit, and it was a little bit different at that point.
Mm.
It was like all these things that I tried to do up until that point to be that like person who never fails, a person who always just does well. They weren't working anymore. So it sort of forced me to figure out, okay, like what is underlying all this? I mean, I can either stay in this state of like, I'll be honest, like my life was almost crumbling is how it felt. Like
Yeah.
I barely like was surviving, like to be truly honest about that. So
How
um
old was your at what age was bracket was this? Was it preschool? Was it
oh
like
no, this was
from
like
birth?
this guy came out like my oldest was born, and it's funny is we have a picture like the moment he came out. He was like, I don't know, 3 minutes old, and his eyes were just wide open, and
Mm.
everyone was like, I was like, is that normal? Like, is that what happens? Because usually they're tired when they come out, right? They just came into the world. They're like, not really, but So he came out ready to go. He was like, I'm in this world. I'm not happy that you put me in this world because, and then now I know a lot of it may have been sensory experiences. It was a lot for him, right? Like, um, but he was just like ready. Like he came out like as a toddler at the 2 minutes after he was born.
Mm.
That's the energy he had, right?
Mm.
So I think it was then. It was the sleep deprivation, right? He didn't sleep
Yeah.
very much. Like that was happening. Also, he just again like I was in mom groups and all these other moms were just like their kids were just chilling, right? Like they just sort of hung out. And
Mhm.
motherhood is hard, especially when you have that first kid, no matter what. But it was just different for me. Like it was. I was like,
Yeah.
you guys, this doesn't happen to you. You don't have to like put a sound machine in your kid's head like so loud because now I know he's a sensory seeker, right? He wants
Yeah.
those really extreme sensory inputs. Like even as he was a little bit older, he like burnt himself on that like a sheet pan one time. Didn't even react to it almost, right?
Yeah.
Like it takes a lot for him to experience sensory inputs. So that kind of stuff was sleep deprivation slash right feeling very much like nobody else got it. Um, Especially as an
Yeah.
empath, it was very hard for me. I wanted to feel understood. I wanted to feel like I wasn't the only one doing these things. So the first thing I thought was it's me, right? Like
Yeah.
I am just messed up, right? Like that's what I thought to myself as I was going through that process.
Mm.
Um, I was like, it's just like everybody else is a good mom. And then for me, it's just hard, and it shouldn't be hard because everybody else is telling me that it's beautiful and all these things. And it felt less beautiful for me at the beginning. So yeah, that's sort of when I started thinking something's different. We didn't really go to get a diagnosis until he was in preschool. And again, as people, if people don't know anything about getting a diagnosis, for any like ADHD neurodivergence, you really have to have it in two different areas, two different environments. So it's school and home before they'll give you before they'll actually go through with paperwork and doing a diagnosis. So we'd seen stuff at home, but we were just sort of like roughing it out, right? And then I was just searching everything I could find. I was like, what is this? Is it this? Is it that? Is that like, books, research. But then when he was starting to see it at school, when it came to, elopement, he was like a runner, right? He ran from us always, but like things like that at
Mhm.
school or, just like a little bit of defiance at school or not going with the normal routines or like blow ups, that kind of stuff. That's when it was like, all right, let's go get something. Let's get it looked at. And I'll say one other thing with that too, because I think part of it is, and even to this day, sometimes I still gaslight myself. I'm like, did I make all this up? Am I just like a
Yeah.
diagnosis seeker? Am I making these things up?
Yeah.
But that external validation of no, you're not making it up. You should go figure it out is sort of what pushed me there to do that. So I just, if I want to say anything to people that are going through this, is like trust your gut instinct as a mom, especially, and don't feel like you have to have somebody else on the outside telling you what to do because
Yeah.
you know your kids, right? You are there every day. And if you have a feeling, you can go with that feeling and not have to worry about somebody on the outside giving you that validation, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it was I read Dr. Gabor Mate has a book on ADHD, which is fabulous. I
Hmm.
love it. And one of the things that he says is like ADHD has traditionally been a diagnosis based on the experiences of people who are not being diagnosed.
Yeah. Like the behaviors, exactly. The external behaviors. Hmm.
Yes. And it's hard because you can't ask a toddler, "Hey, do you feel overly like you have an excessive sense of urgency?" Like this
Exactly.
doesn't
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Hmm.
really tough. And so having that somebody say to them what
Yeah.
you're saying right now is so important. Like, trust your gut. Like, something's weird.
Hmm.
Go get it checked out. Go
Yeah.
do the things, do the research. And this is not all in your head. You're
Yeah.
not a hypochondriac. And
Hmm.
I also remember like back in the 90s when quote everyone was getting diagnosed with ADHD and everybody's like, "Oh, this is just like kids being kids," and now
Yeah.
we're putting a diagnosis on it. There's a fear of that, I think, especially in our generation.
Yeah.
So don't listen to that fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen to your intuition. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What was the turning point for you on that? Tell me anything more, please. You're
Yeah, yeah. I think
love it.
again, the turning point was again. I don't want to say it was the external validation, but it was right. And
Yeah.
then we're like, all right, let's go get our diagnosis. That's that in it itself is a journey, right? Who can do the diagnosis? I wrote a blog post about this because that's like one of the biggest questions I get is people have no idea even where to start at that point.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And now I know more than I knew then. They don't know where to start. And then number two, there's huge waiting lists to get into places. Is
Mm-hmm.
insurance going to cover it? Is it going to be $6 million? Like so all
Yep.
those things sort of are in the mix, all while you're trying to manage, you know, a kid who's having challenges, and even possibly yourself who's having challenges, because we know there's a huge hereditary element to it. If
Mm-hmm.
a kid is neurodivergent, there's a very big likelihood that either one parent is or other people within the family. So a lot of times it's like everyone's struggling, right? And then when one thing comes and it's a little bit harder for you, sometimes it's easy to sort of give up, and
Yep.
be like, I'm not doing this anymore. And you would be very valid in doing that because it is hard. It is just hard. So it's really, I want to encourage people though that if you do feel like giving up on and not moving forward with that, I think we had talked about this. Number one, look at yourself first, right? Like pour into yourself as a parent first. If you are not able to do what you need to do and like advocate for your kid in that moment, like don't beat yourself up about it, right? Look at yourself and think, how can I support myself in this moment, whether that's working with a
Mm-hmm.
professional or doing something, for even just self-care, something from that element as well, so that you can get to that point, because you will be at that point where then you can advocate for your kids. So again, always focus on yourself and making sure that you're okay first. And then also pick one small thing, right? So even if it feels overwhelming, like, okay, I have to get a diagnosis for my kid. I have to figure out everything that needs to happen for them. I need to give out the therapies. I need to do this at school, all these things. And that is so overwhelming. So pick one small thing that you can do. Maybe you call one person today, and then, the next day you pick one small thing, or even once a week, you pick one small thing to do to really make it feel a little more attainable. And then each time you do something, just celebrate it. Even if it's super small. Like I said, I called
Yes.
one doctor's office today. Like, give yourself a little celebration party for that, because it is a big deal. And then if you're making that forward progress, it won't feel so overwhelming, if that makes any sense. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I've been trying to really think about in my life. Because especially if you are also, like, for example, I have ADHD myself, and there's an element of like time blindness where it's like all or nothing, right? Either everything on
Yes.
my to-do list needs to be done right now, or I'm never going to do it. That's about it, right? Those are the two options. So, right, like support your own executive functioning skills in that moment and really try to chunk it out as something that is attainable. Um, and if you need help doing that, again, you can talk to a friend about it, talk to a coach, talk to a therapist. Like there's other people you can help who can reach out, who you can reach out to that will help you. So
If you've been craving something deeper, something sacred, something real, then this is for you. Listen, we get so much out of chatting with you on the podcast and online. We love your comments, your messages, your transformation, but it's just not the same as being together in person. We want to meet you. So we've created something incredibly special for you. We're calling it Into the Heroine's Heart. It's a 4-day women's retreat in the secluded mountains of Idaho this June the 26th through the 29th. This is more than a retreat. It's a guided descent into the most tender and powerful parts of yourself. There is magic when women gather, and with daily rituals, astrology, shadow work, cacao ceremonies, drum circles, nourishing food, and the beauty of sisterhood, you'll reconnect to your body, your heart, and your wild feminine wisdom. This is going to allow you to live the podcast instead of just listening to it. We'll be putting all the juicy, delicious, visceral things you've heard about here into living physical form. You'll sleep under the stars, share stories by the fire, and leave feeling alive, whole, and aligned. There are only 10 spots left, and actually probably less by the time this gets posted. And if you're a Feminine Alchemist member, you get $150 off. So go to the link in the show notes, click it, and begin your journey to wholeness. Please join us for this once-in-a-lifetime experience. If your heart is calling, I hope you'll answer. We'll see you there. Back to the show.
I love the concept of, if you've ever seen this meme where it's like, have like a full schedule today, and it's like one phone call at noon, but it's like psyching myself up to have this one phone call at noon is like 3 hours beforehand, and then 3 hours after of like decompressing after that one phone call at noon. And if you're there, like, you're not alone. You've been there. I've been there. Especially when we're talking about calling a doctor's office we've never called before, and not knowing what response they're going to have. And are they going to tell us we're crazy? Am I going to go through a phone system that's then going to transfer me into a loop?
Yes.
And then I have to try it all over again and psych myself up for that. Like, dude, I totally get that.
It is hard. Yeah. And exactly. I think we're just like, we hold ourselves to such high standards, especially as parents, where we think we need to know and do everything, and we're not allowed to have weaknesses or things that are hard for us. Especially when it comes to neurodivergence. I think so a small phone call might be really hard for you. It might be really hard. And the world might look at that as like, okay, that's super simple. But then you can go and accomplish something that other people can't accomplish because of the way your brain works. And they may think it's super hard, and you just knock it out the park without even trying, right? And so it's so easy to focus on the things that are more challenging for us. I don't even want to say we're not good at, but that are more challenging for us. And beat ourselves up for it. When in reality, everyone has strengths and weaknesses. Like, that's just life. Like, that's every human in the world. So just, are your strengths more socially acceptable? Are your weaknesses more socially acceptable? Or is somebody else's weaknesses more socially acceptable, right? So, and that's so ambiguous. Like, what is socially acceptable? Like, who cares? I mean, we have to care, but who cares? Like, right? Like when it comes to, sometimes our own brains are what is causing more stress. And I talk to people about this a lot too, because your brain is a muscle, right? It's about working that muscle out and changing those belief systems you may have had your whole life about what is good and what is not good, and what is socially acceptable and what's not socially acceptable. And when I can give myself grace, and when I need to push and beat myself up over something. Like, I don't know. I'm a radical person when it comes to a lot of things. I'm like, challenge all that, forget all of that, throw it out the window. And then work towards what you want. Like, set a goal and work towards what you want your brain to think about. What we feed inside of our brains is what is going to be our life. That's the idea of manifestation, right? Like, that manifest what you want, but it's not just like this simple thing where, like, some people may think it's more woo, like, manifest what you want. It actually, there is neuroscience behind it.
Yeah.
Have your goal, like in those moments when you feel your brain going to a place that you don't want it to go, give that thought a moment to be heard and seen, and then choose which thought you want to grow, right? Like, it sounds so simple. It's really hard, but yeah, you can we're awesome. Like our brains are awesome and we can really do anything we want.
There are
It's
parts of our brain that, like in the hippocampus, I've done a lot of research on the hippocampus lately,
yeah.
and it will literally like not even give you the ability to see something that's in front of you
Yeah.
because you don't believe it exists. And
Yeah.
so like
Yeah.
opportunity, like you could have $1 million smack you in the face, you wouldn't see it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Which is, again, I think people don't even realize the power of like the actual science behind it and what's
Yeah.
actually happening in our brain. And it's not just something that we make up. Like that is real science. Look into the real science behind it. That believing in something and making a choice in your brain for something and then continuing to build on that choice can completely change your life. And I am like the person who was not a believer in this before, going through my own journey of understanding my brain, my nervous system, my past, those kind of things. So if I can be converted into that, anybody can. So
Mhm.
yeah, yeah,
Tell us about overachieving and how much pressure there is to overachieve,
yeah.
especially with neurodivergence, and how that sort of works out in ways that you've seen in yourself, but also in other people and people you've coached with overachieving or high achievement.
Yes. So I think part of it is also like culturally what was like the cultural norms for us growing up. What was parenting like for us growing up? It was like achievement based, right? If you did this thing, if you got all A's and you worked really hard, then you got, you know, positive outpouring. And if you didn't, then you got negative outpouring. And it was very much like your value was based on what you did, not who you were as a person without having to do anything. That like I think a lot of parents in the 90s were like that, right? Like in early 2000s even. And there's been like a little bit of a shift in it now where people are really looking at the other side of things and how that's impacted how we view ourselves, being people pleasers, that kind of stuff. So that's part of
Mhm.
it, that all of us were sort of in there. And then being having like a neurodivergence, I think that there's like this sense of black and whiteness, right? Like this is right and this is wrong. So I have to do the right thing. My brain is pushing me towards this right thing. It has to be perfect. It has to be exactly the way that my brain envisions it. There's not a lot of gray area sometimes when it comes to a neurodivergent brain. I think that contributes to it too, because it's sort of pushing us towards that. And it's hard to have that flexible thinking. Um, I think also for me specifically as a woman as well,
Mm.
there's high expectations on us and how we're going to interact socially and how we're going to be as a mom. Like our expectations are so high on ourselves. That like the idea you can have it all. You can have your job and give 100% there and give 100% to your home and give
Yeah.
100% to your friends. It's okay. If you can't do that, then you need to fix something. When in
Yeah.
reality, that's not real. Like that's not even real. So there's so many little elements of it. And it's almost like you gotta like break down each element separately to I think to a certain extent when you're trying to sort of reprogram the way your brain works and how you are finding value in yourself. For me, again, I think I just was like, I mean, I don't want this to sound cocky, but I'm sort of smart, right? Like that sounds bad, but just not, man, I'm not smart in some things, but like school wise, I just got things, right? Like I understood
Yeah.
math. Like it was easier for me than it was maybe for some other people. So that was such an easy way for me to get validation, was just to be good at everything. Like, I'm like, okay, I'll just go to engineering school. I'll just do all these things. It's like, I'll just keep going. But I still always felt this like inside thing where it was like, almost like the bar keeps rising too, right? Like
Yeah.
you're never enough. Like you just keep going and going and going. Because at
Yeah.
the core, that's not what the issue is. The issue at the core is that you're trying to find your value in things that are not like where you should be finding your value. They're not in there's things that change. There's things that could be taken away from you at any moment, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, and I even like from a faith perspective, that's where I think I have shifted a little bit too. Because again, I grew up as like in the Christian church and things like that. And I think now when I look at my faith as well, like and if you look at Jesus's life even, it was about, like it's not about just like it being perfect and being this thing, or that Jesus only loves you if you do these things and you obey, right? The idea is that no, like
Mhm.
that you don't have to be perfect. Like to come to him. He doesn't want perfect people. If you look in the Bible, he literally went to the people who were the least perfect. They were like the ones that were the outcasts, right? And that's what I'll touch on. Like, I feel like neurodivergence in the Bible is never talked about, but like half these people were probably neurodivergent back in the day. Like David, man, like that guy is like fighting like giants. Like, come on, man. Like, who does that? Who doesn't have like impulse control issues, right? Like, like. So, anyways,
I love it.
that's all. That's a side note. That's me going off on a tangent, like normal. But anyways, so you have to deconstruct those things, and once you realize like what's happening. And sometimes I think I go too far with my kids, where I don't want them to feel that way. Maybe I'm I'm a little too passive, where I'm also not giving them the chance to step up and have higher expectations for themselves. I think it's like about high expectations, high support, right? Like that's the goal, is to have expectations for your kids that they can do hard things, that they can have resilience, that they can, keep going in the face of adversity, but you're supporting them to get there. It's not like if they do that, they will be loved. It's like they can do that because they're awesome, and I'm going to support them to get there. So
how do you work, or what was your process like of what they call like unmasking, or was it entirely belief shifting? What did that involve for you? Like, how many times did you go through like a reinvention of yourself as you were going through this process and shedding off layers of this version of you that you were before you realized who you really were?
I'm still doing it. So like, I don't know the answer. Is like, I think that is the biggest shift, is like thinking that you're going to go from like being like masking certain things your whole life to like just being this truly perfectly authentic person. If we could live in a bubble away from all of society, then maybe we could do that, right? Especially for women, because I think it's so hard. If you think about ADHD, it's like it's the hyperactive little boy's disease, right? Like that's all the research. That's what people think about when they think about it. So as a woman, I think it's even harder. There's like not a lot of research on it. There's not a lot of acceptance, because a lot of when it comes from an ADHD perspective, a lot of what you see in symptoms looks like character flaws for women, right? Like we're supposed to be organized. We're supposed to be having it all together. Like we're not supposed to speak out of turn. We're not supposed to, like, there's so many things we're not supposed to do. So I would say, if I've learned anything, it's that this is going to be like a forever process, maybe, right? And it's like here's how it feels. It feels like you pull a little bit of layer back, and then that's your vulnerable self coming out there, right? So then sometimes it's really accepted, and sometimes it's like rejected, or even there's the idea of rejection sensitivity dysphoria with neurodivergence sometimes. So then you almost gaslight yourself. Like, am I actually being rejected, or am I making this up? Like, am I making it worse? So I think it's like a continuous reinvention process. And so when I've done it, it's like I've shed off a little layer, and then I'm like, ooh, vulnerability, uncomfortable. And then you sort of maybe like start accepting that part of yourself. And then another piece comes out. You're like, okay, let me peek this little part out. And then you're like, oh, uncomfortable, vulnerability, right? And I think it's like a continuous process of becoming who you really are. I think there's parts that I saw this on an Instagram video the other day. There's parts that you maybe never unmask because you don't even know the difference between what you're masking and who you are. And sometimes they're so melded together. It's like if you rip the mask off, you rip off your face, right? Like, or yourself. So giving yourself a little bit of grace when it comes to that, and realizing that it's not going to be A to B and I'm done, right? Like it's a continuous process. I think my expectations were not realistic with that, and then I got mad at myself for like almost like backsliding, if that makes any sense. I felt like my confidence backslid, and I was like, what's wrong with me? I figured this out. I'm good. So yeah.
But what is the feeling that you have that makes you like, what does it feel like when you finally find the you that you were looking for, and you're in that vulnerability, and you're like, okay, this is scary. Also, it's worth it. Like, why is it worth it to you? What is that feeling that you're having?
Yeah, because it feels like I can be myself finally. It feels like all these pieces that maybe I pushed down and turned into anxiety, truthfully, like that's what happened. It turned into anxiety. Now I can actually bring that part of my personality forward and be honest about like, this is who I am. And for me also, I think there's like a sense of like, if I do it, then that gives somebody else a chance to do it. I think that's my motivating force as well, a little bit. I guess in my mind, that's almost like the people pleaser never went away. I'm always thinking about other people, right? But it can be good too. So I think for me, I know if I can do this, other people can do it, and even my kids, right? Like the fact that I can now be myself, and I verbalize a lot, like, this is what's happening with me to my kids. Like, okay, I'm getting super overwhelmed by all the sensory things that's happening and we need to get out the door. Like maybe in the past, I would have just trucked through it, gotten mad at everybody, exploded, right? And I would have felt terrible about myself and all that kind of stuff. But now I'm like, no, it gives me a little bit of sense of power also, that like, this is who I am and I can be this person. It doesn't mean this is all of me. Like, this is one piece of me, and I can still respect other people while being myself. And I can still be concerned about other people while being myself in those moments, about being my true, authentic self that struggles with executive function, that struggles with not interrupting people in conversations, like all that kind of stuff. So I can feel stronger in those moments. And then that gives me a little bit more even regulation, right? Like even just feeling very, very balanced to then be able to choose what I want to do with how I'm showing up in the world, if that makes any sense. I almost feel like I didn't get to choose in the past. It just was that because it was so ingrained in me. And now I get to choose how I use who I am as a person in the world.
And I think that's what people mean when they say, I feel more empowered. But like, that sounds like a really heady phrase, but everything you just said is like, I get to choose. I get to do it. I get to take action, and not because some other thing is driving me that I didn't really have control over and is a result of my reaction to how my parents lived their lives and with their own wounds and their own crap and whatever. I get to do what's actually me. And even though my action might be the same, it's coming from a different place.
That's true.
Too.
Exactly. There's a freedom in it for sure. Like, and you don't feel as weighed down because you feel like, like something's not pulling you towards this way. Like you are taking ownership of what's happening in your life and who you are. So it's a combination though. It's like, it's also terrifying, right? It's both sides. It's like, and it always goes back and forth between both sides. I have noticed though, I think over time, the more positive emotions are like, it's like they're growing, and the negative emotions are like, they're there still sometimes, but they get easier some over time. There are moments where you still go back to like the more negative emotions that are overtaking everything, and maybe not even negative, but harder to have emotions. Actually, my 3-year-old's in like he gets like social emotional help at school, and so that's not negative and positive emotions. It's easy to have and hard to have emotions, because that even reframes how we treat our emotions and how we allow ourselves to feel. The harder to have emotions aren't.
Do you feel like, I love this, and I want to talk about emotions because it's a really important piece. Do you feel like when you were more in a masculine space, when you were doing engineering and achievement and all the things, were you ignoring or suppressing emotions that you were having in general?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, you have to show up a specific way. Like, you can't show up as an empath in that kind of a way, like, right? Like, it's about the bottom line when it comes to that. Like, when you're in that kind of a space that's male-dominated, that is all about capitalism, right? Like, and all those things, you show up and you produce. It's that simple. There's no space for emotions. Even though, truthfully, I've worked in different spaces where there were, I'd say even the women in those spaces have to be more masculine. Like they have to have those traits. They can't have a softer side of themselves. And I sometimes question, are they really being who they are? I think that's what pushed me out of that space so much, is like, I cannot be my true authentic self here. This is not filling my cup. Like I can do it. Like I can do it and be successful, but I'm just like dying to myself every day is how it felt. Right. And I know there's privilege in that too, because I know not everybody can be like, oh, I just want to leave and go do something else and start a business. So I want to acknowledge the privilege there is there. But yes, I do feel like it was very different. You couldn't really be yourself. You couldn't have those emotions. You couldn't care about people in the way that I wanted to care about people, if that makes any sense. Because there's always some other part that's coming in, sort of forcing you to think about concrete things instead of the other side. So, it feels much better now on this other side. Still terrifying, like starting your own business is hard. And I think that's part of that vulnerability as well, like where you're unmasking, taking things out or trying new things you haven't tried before while deconstructing these beliefs that you had in the past. Like, it's hard and super rewarding to really be yourself. So
I think there's less risk in a way with the old stuff, right? Because you know
yes,
exactly what you're being told to do. And as long
yes,
as you achieve it, then you are fine and
yeah,
everything, you're safe. But things that are more vulnerable have way more risk involved, especially like when you're putting yourself out there as like a person
yeah,
and as a coach
yeah,
and running a business, which
mm-hmm,
has a different kind of risk involved.
yeah,
It's so much, but like the risk and the vulnerability are how we even are able to show up, right? We can't show up as our true selves without vulnerability, without
yeah,
risk.
yeah.
And
Yeah, so the
so cool.
reward's much higher, right? Like, you're gonna
Yeah.
come, even when it is a hard day, you're still gonna come out with a different level of satisfaction, if that makes any sense, like, with a true satisfaction of feeling good about what you've done, even if it wasn't exactly what you wanted, versus the other side, which, again, it's like, it's what is success? I think that's the question that I come up with right now. What does success look
Yeah.
like to you? Is success having this, like, job where you can't be yourself, but you make a lot of money and you do all these things? Or is success being yourself and showing up in the world the way you want to show up in the world, right? What does that look like for you? A lot of people are stuck, especially in, a metropolitan DC area. People very much want to achieve. And then we put that on
Yes.
our kids too, right? Like, they need to be in 10, travel sports. They need to be in all these activities. They got to do this, this, and that. If they don't get into advanced math now, then they're going to, in third grade, they're going to be like, failures. Like it's
Mhm.
so much. And so many people are ascribing to it that it's almost like a competition as well as a parent, to be like, well, my kid's in this, my kid's in this. Blah, blah. So if you want to go against that grain and do something different with your kids, it's almost like we talked about. It's risk taking. It's vulnerability. It is all of those things. So it's really like, what do you want long term for your family? What do you want your values to be for your family? And are you going to live according to your values, or are you going to live according to the values of the people around you? Like,
Yes.
those are the decisions we
Yes.
have to make. So people don't think about that, though. I think they're sometimes so deep into it that they're just sort of going, go, go, go. But really taking that step back to think about, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why, like, what do I want this to look like in the end? And living your life based on those values, setting your boundaries based on those values, like, teaching your kids skills based on those values. That's what I'm passionate about, and that's what I try to help people with, is thinking that way instead of just day to day trying to survive. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Hey friends, it's Jayanne here. If you have been feeling really stressed out about the world lately, you are not alone. There's been enough crazy and fear flying around the internet that even I've been knocked off my rocker sometimes. But it's times like these that I'm really grateful for the tools I have to regulate my nervous system. I developed these tools for myself when I was going through the thick of it. My babies were young and I had a ton of repressed anger. And these tools helped me through other stressful times, including negotiating my own divorce, having difficult money conversations, and of course, the whole COVID experience. And I've put all these tools in a method I call the authentic self-care method. This is different than other self-care programs because it is a framework for you to find your special sauce when it comes to self-care. And let me tell you a secret. Step one is not take a bath, get a haircut, or go to the gym. Step one is regulate your nervous system. And that's exactly what we do inside the 3-in-1 membership. This powerful program includes focused journals and meditations you can do in just a few minutes, like the fight or flight session, the hippocampus session, which rewrites your ability to see new possibilities, and the vagus nerve session, which helps you regulate your whole body in a crisis. Using these tools, members have reported feeling more empowered, more expansive, and many experienced relief from actual physical pain, all for less than $2 a day. So join the 3-in-1 membership now so you can learn these tools today. The world is not going to become less crazy. The only thing you can control is how you respond to it. The 3-in-1 membership will help you do that, so click the link in the show notes to enroll today. What is your approach when you have a new client? What is your approach with that person? Is it always different, or do you feel like you see really common similarities? You're like, okay, let's get this part nailed down first, and then we can go to these more nuanced things. What's kind of your secret formula?
Yeah. So I would say, just as a side note, first and foremost, I think a lot of times we focus on our kids. And so people are looking, especially when it comes to ADHD, they want help with their kid. They're like, hey, my kid is struggling in school or this, come fix the situation, right? And that's not really what I do. There are coaches that do that. So, but what I do is focusing on the parents because, again, if we don't know anything about ADHD, the way our kids' brains work, how we want to parent, our family values, if we don't know any of that stuff and we're sending our kids out to have all these services, they're going to come back and you're not going to be continuing that line of thought in your house. You're not going to see that lasting change. You're going to wonder why things aren't changing. So when it comes to clients coming in, I think the first part is like really understanding that it's also it's a journey. This isn't like a one time fix, like, oh, come and you do this one thing one time and you're good, right? Like there is that element of strategies and tools, but it really is a combination of two things. It's a combination of that deep work inside of yourself to figure out, am I showing up as a parent in a way that I want to show up? Am I taking care of myself? Am I coming and modeling things for my kids that I want from them? So really doing that deep work inside with the combination of actual strategies that work with kids that have ADHD, because it's very different than what would work maybe for a kid who doesn't have ADHD, and it's very different than a lot of parenting advice that's out there right now. It really is, like I said, it needs to be like a combination of those high expectations as well, and very clear boundaries and very clear expectations, because like I said, black and white thinking, right? These kids work in black and white thinking, and they're going to find the loophole, and they're going to right, they're going to get in that loophole because they're going to be lawyers one day, right? So you need to be confident coming in there. So again, I think it's our own internal work of showing up confident, showing up in the way we want to model for our kids, and then in your actual family, what will work and how can you be consistent with it? Because just like I talked about before, where if you think you can do everything in a day, you will fail, right? Like you're going to fail. So what is something small that I can put in place with my kids that will make the biggest impact? What is the hardest part of parenting your kids right now? And how can we hone in on that and come up with a plan for that you actually will be consistent with? It reminds me of even like fitness and nutrition. Like what, if you try to change everything at once, your entire diet, you will not stick with that for years, right? Like, so it has to be something that's attainable, that's reasonable, that is easy to implement, that almost gives, especially if the parents have like a little bit of neurodivergence, gives yourself a dopamine hit as well as you're implementing that. And then you're able to then be consistent with it. So again, I think when people come in, part of it is like, just to summarize, shifting that mind frame of like, it's just my kids to, what can I do for myself? And having realistic expectations that this is a journey and it takes time to make changes. It takes time to realize things. The first step is just noticing, right? Knowing what's happening inside of your house and how you're showing up, then implementing the change over time. And then celebrating, right? You want to celebrate what's happening that's going well, and you want to build on those strengths. It's going to be easier to see results if you're building on the strength than if you're just worried about what's going wrong all the time, right? So how do we build on the strengths that are happening in your home? And when you're in the thick of it, it's so hard to see those sometimes, right? Like it's so hard to have that hope that this is not how it has to be forever, and that there are things going well. So sometimes having that like the outside factor to be like, this is what's going well in your house. Let's keep moving forward on that. Like not everything is completely burning down to the ground, right? Like, even though it feels that way, so validating it feels that way, I can see a little glimmer. Let's build on that, right? So
I find that when I have to celebrate the wins because otherwise I forget what's
yeah,
changed. That's a
exactly.
huge one.
100%. And again, you're not going to see, it's not like these magical stories sometimes. And sometimes it is, but it's not this story where it's like, I did this one thing and then my kid never fought me on anything. And they just got ready in the morning with, they just got ready and I had patience without when they fought me on it. Like, that's not realistic, right? You have to celebrate those small things because small things over time creates that change, creates that consistent change that's going to give you the life in your house, your family life that you want, that's going to bring peace for you and your kids, not just not for your kids, like for everybody in the house, right? So, or even siblings,
Yeah.
it's going to bring peace to everyone.
And
Yeah.
you're not going to maintain those small changes
Yeah,
if you
exactly.
have beliefs that fight you every single
Yes.
day. And so that's why starting with yourself is 100% like the most powerful thing you can do.
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly.
What are your thoughts on gentle parenting?
Yeah, so again, that's where, and so I hate the name and love the idea behind it because I think some people are so turned off by gentleness, which actually just tells you about our culture. Like, why does gentleness sound so terrible to us? Like, just question that. Like, that's already, something that we could talk a whole day on. So I think that, and I think sometimes gentle parenting can go towards permissive parenting. People sometimes associate it with permissive. It's not the idea of permissive parenting. It's the idea of parenting the whole child, right? Not just behaviors that you want out of them, but how do you model and teach them skills to be a human who has confidence, who can fight peer pressure, who knows who they are, those types of things. So like I always say, there's the idea, there's a couple different kinds of parenting styles. There's like permissive, there's authoritative and authoritarian. Well, the one that is like, okay, high expectations of your kids. So you're not just letting them do whatever they want. You have boundaries, you have things, but your boundaries aren't ambiguous. Your boundaries are based off of your family values. And then your consequences, if you're implementing those, are the same way. I'm all about natural and logical consequences. So, if your kid doesn't do their homework, then they're going to get a bad grade, right? Like, and maybe you don't step in and help them with it because that's a natural consequence they're going to learn, right? Or if you have set a boundary in the house where they need to wear a helmet when they ride their bike and then they didn't ride their helmet, then you come in and you take away the bike that you've talked about beforehand. What's your expectation? You have to wear the helmet when you ride the bike. If you don't do it, they will be gone for this amount of time. But you don't make your consequences ridiculous. If they don't wear the helmet one time, that you don't get your bike for 3 months, right? Like something ridiculous like that. So it's all about like what are your family values and how are those values then implemented in your boundaries and consequences? So I think, again, maybe it's gentle parenting, whatever. I like to call it either conscious or intentional parenting because that's sort of what you're really looking at. It's not just necessarily about being, gentle, although there's nothing wrong with being gentle because gentle is a good thing. You can totally be gentle in your consequences and your boundaries. You're treating your child as a human and not just a little minion to be like controlled, right? That's the idea. Some of the behavior, some of the treatment we give towards kids, we would never give towards an adult. And it's actually like we're treating kids like they're not humans. They are humans with little underdeveloped brains. That's what they are, right? Like they have like less skills than us because they are maturing, but they still need to be treated with care and respect, just like we expect that respect for us. So those are my thoughts on gentle parenting. I'll step off my soapbox now, but
it's a good soapbox.
Yeah.
And I think it's one that needs to be said to a lot of people because the media depiction of gentle parenting is permissive parenting, and that's not what we're talking about.
No, exactly. It's not just letting your kids go do anything that they want, but you really, as a parent, should be questioning, why am I setting this boundary? Like, what is this boundary teaching my kid? Is there a skill that they're learning? Am I keeping them safe? Like, there's, if it's ambiguous and it's just about me being triggered by something, right? Then that's when we got to go do that deep work again, right? So,
those are the big questions of that is the perpetual question, self-questioning of, am I doing this because I'm reacting to a trigger in my own life from my own childhood, Am I doing this because my parents did it? And do I actually agree with whatever it is my parents did and why they did things?
Yeah.
Especially in this particular instance, right? And then like, am I trying to get my kid to fulfill a wound that I have? And
Yeah. 100%.
is that really why I'm
Yeah.
reacting this way?
Mm-hmm.
And I love what you said about like, it needs to have like natural consequences. And sometimes as parents, we just need to speed up the natural consequences a little faster so they get it.
Yeah.
And like the bike thing, right? Like
Yeah.
if you don't wear a helmet and you ride your bike and you hit your head, like, okay, we don't want
We don't want
that
that to happen.
natural
Exactly.
consequence.
There's safety things where you have to step in. That's more of like a logical consequence. Natural is
Yeah.
where it just happens. Logical is where a parent is coming in and actually, having some input to it. But the consequence still is related to the boundary. And the
Yes.
boundary has to be clear up front. And that's what people don't realize sometimes. These kids
Yeah.
don't know sometimes, especially ADHD kids. We have to be so crystal clear in that boundary. It has to be very clear, and it has to be communicated more than just one time for them
So
to
many
really
times.
exactly,
Oh my gosh.
exactly. So yes, it's exhausting, right? But that's where I think, again, if you go back to family values and you have set of family values that you're like, your family value might be, I don't know, one of our family values is like teamwork and collaboration, like helping each other, like, is it based off of that? So if we're treating our sibling poorly, is that, implementing our team value of having like a teamwork atmosphere where we help each other? No, that's causing harm to your sibling, right? So it's always really, and then having that sort of like as like a thread throughout the way that you live your life. It could be a conversation at dinner. It could be something happens in the world and you bring that value back up. Like it could be all kinds of different things, but it can't just be like, all right, we had the conversation one time, they got it. No, they don't got it. Their little brains need a lot more maturing, and some of our brains do too, let's be honest, right? As adults, like we're still stuck in the maturing phase sometimes. So sometimes my kids are more emotionally mature than me. I'm gonna be honest. Like they'll come back, something will happen in our house because we've implemented as very much like we say sorry when things happen, but not just sorry, because sorry doesn't really mean anything, but it's about like making amends for what you did if it impacted somebody else. And then what are we going to do next time? Let's gain a skill for next time. So my kids will come and like say sorry to me without me even saying anything, sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. And then if I do something, they're like, you got something to say? Like, are you ready yet? Like, you're not ready to come back up and like, and allowing that in my house, like in a respectful way. It doesn't have to be in a disrespectful way, but like, they're not doing it when I'm just doing anything, right? Or sometimes they will. Sometimes they'll do it when I'm like, that was actually just a boundary I set. I'm not saying sorry for that because I didn't do anything wrong, but, giving that space for them to come back and call me out in a respectful, kind way. Think about how that's going to translate when they're a teenager and somebody's trying to, do something to them that is not right. Like they are trying to invade their personal space. They're trying to have them do something, like that they know is not right for their values. They're going to push back because they were allowed to do it at home. So yeah, it's all, you're just trying to create humans is what you're really trying to do. Like a human that you want as an adult. That's what you're trying to do on a daily basis at home. How do you do that is the question. It's different for everybody, but that's part of what I help people with is how do you do that? How do you create, what human do you want to create in the end, and how do you do it, right? So without losing your mind in the process. So that's key, right? Key is maintaining your
So where can people find you? Because this is like really powerful information, and I could just talk to you for like hours and hours.
Yeah.
But I'm sure other people want to talk to you so much. Where can people find you if they want to watch your stuff or work with you directly?
Yeah. So the name of my company is called The Guiding Well. So if you go to www.theguidingwell.com, I also have an Instagram, which is also The Guiding Well, and a Facebook, which is also The Guiding Well. So, but if you go directly on my website and you want to have, a free chat with me, then you can go ahead and book. There's a link there directly. So I love to talk to people or find me on social media and send me a message there as well. Yeah, I love it. So
I love it. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate you for everything that you just shared with us. And how you approach life. And thank you so much. So great. Gotta have
Thank
you
you
back
for having
too.
me, and also just loving to see your beautiful face. So thank you for that too. We go way back, like you said. So yeah.
All right, everyone, find Ashley at theguidingwell.com and have a great week. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. Please make sure to give us a 5-star rating wherever you are listening and share with someone you know. See you next week.